the $1 Million Mortgage Experience Podcast. All right, welcome to the show, everybody. I'm here with Clinton Selfridge, who is an incredible real estate agent. You do a lot of high-end real estate. He started off in New York City selling, I think, penthouses, right, and high-rises. And then you moved over here to San Diego, and you've sold over $50 million in homes just last year.
Correct.
And now, it's a different market, but I wanted to bring you on the show. Glad to have you.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we're here in this 2022 market, which is kind of nutty.
It's a little different.
I remember the first time I met you, we were, I think it was 2015, maybe 16, something like that. And we were at a party, and I'm sitting there, and you kept having, the party was like a real estate networking thing. It was, I think, an escrow party, maybe Fidelity National Title, something like that. But there was all these people coming up to you, and I was like, God, this guy must be sort of real estate famous. And I was like, I need to get in with, maybe get some referrals from him and just work with him, because I knew you'd sold like some really high top end homes, and it just was like impressive. So
thank you. Thank you.
Ever since then, we've been friends.
Yep.
And I don't do loans anymore. So I'm sure you still have a mortgage person somewhere, but
I do. I have them scattered around.
You just pick and choose whenever.
Well, they offer different things at different times. So
that's good.
It's just, building up the network.
Awesome, man. So tell us how you got in the real estate business.
Well, it's kind of a long story, but I'll make it quick.
We got this
I
cute
can remember
here.
I can remember when I was 14 years old, I started wandering around open houses in my parents' neighborhood. They were living in a new development in Dallas, and my mom was like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I'd like to go to some open houses, please." And so, at that age, I needed to take a guardian.
Was there like little little stickers and stuff?
There wasn't little stickers, but there was maybe some treats to eat.
Yeah, like Snicker bars.
And so that sort of helped. But I remember like going and seeing these houses, and I would go home and just, sketch the floor plans and things that I liked about the house and things that I didn't, I would try to change. And initially I thought I wanted to be an architect. And I went down that road in college, but realized it was way too detail oriented for me and way too much art. So I realized that I loved properties, but I wanted to sell them. I didn't want to, design them from scratch. So I moved to New York City after college, and I met this lady that was like, "You'd be great in real estate." I was like, "Isn't that sort of an old ladies game?"
Right.
And, back in those days in New York, it was Upper East Side and a lot of, ladies in their power suits, going out for 3 martinis at lunch. And, but it was way more than that once I got into it. And I just started working with a top agent and, got my sea legs and basically just started selling. And it turned out to be a really good thing for many years.
Absolutely, man.
So
That's interesting. So 14, so you weren't, riding your mountain bike, or you were just like on the weekends going.
I was doing that too, but on Sundays, open house day.
That was the day you went over to the open houses.
Yeah, so afternoons was something I just started. And
I kind of feel like a lot of stories, the success stories, start out with like, for some reason, people who have like really high success really started young into something, had an interest, and then for some reason they focused on it, and it just sort of over years. I mean, not that you can't be successful if you start later,
right?
But I think it makes it easier. It's kind of like kids that start out speaking Spanish. If they're Americans, they start speaking Spanish at a young age. It just comes natural,
it's easier.
Right?
Yeah.
So like you being around that really kind of helped sort of like launch that a little bit.
It launched my interest. I didn't know how it manifest itself in what sort of occupation I would end up having, but I remember, following the interest and following the dream of, I really like, working with properties and homes and seeing what's great about them and how do people live in them. So
that's cool.
That's kind of how it started.
And so that was in New York, or then you went to New York.
I went to New York after college, and that's where I started in real estate. So,
and then you started. I mean, back then they probably weren't as expensive as they are now, but they still, relatively to Texas, was much
they
high
were definitely
end.
more expensive. I remember when I was 25 selling a $7 million townhouse on the Upper East Side. And, those are sort of New York things that you can't do in most of the country. I realized I was very fortunate. But it was also just being in the right place, in the right office, and coming across the right clients. And
cool.
It just worked.
That's awesome, man. That must have been a great payday.
It was a great
At
payday.
25?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You might have had a split, though, with the broker, maybe?
I did.
Okay, but still.
I did have a split, but, I found the client and I got the deal, and I had, the other agent sort of helped me with it. And, it was certainly worth it.
Yeah. So I think most real estate agents would dream of selling these, 7 million, 10 million homes. It's just something that, like, obviously we get paid a percentage commission.
Yeah.
Same with mortgages, right? The mortgages, you're paid on your points or whatever your comp plan is. So, naturally anyone would prefer to sell, bigger homes or bigger mortgages. Is that kind of something that came into mind, or did you just kind of you just like being around nice homes? Like, what was the
I didn't intentionally surround myself with a certain segment of the market. It just kind of happened. And then, once I moved to San Diego, I realized that, I really enjoyed the luxury market, and I couldn't really go backwards.
Right.
So I needed to stay, working in Del Mar and in La Jolla and Rancho Santa Fe and working with the luxury, buyers and sellers. It just interested me more.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it can be harder to do a first time, home buyer than it can someone that, buys a $5-10 million house.
Absolutely.
Just because they've done many transactions before and they know what to do.
So someone that would buy a $5 or $10 million house, tell us about that kind of client. Like, what are your clients like? Are they driving Bugattis? And
some of them are, and some of them are, very understated and would never want anyone to know they had money.
Right.
Also I have a lot of clients who have second homes in San Diego or sometimes third, sometimes fourth. And so they live other parts of the country or world, depending upon the season or the weather.
Yeah.
Or their tax situation, as we all know. So, it's a real mix of people. But I do also enjoy working with first-time home buyers, that might be, sons and daughters of clients of mine. I think when you're in the high-end luxury, your clients tend to be a little bit older.
Yep.
And then, you network with them and you work with them in a good relationship. They want their kids to work with you as well.
That's cool.
So it's passed down. So
yeah, absolutely. Like, when you're a younger, like I imagine when my kids want to buy a house at some point, they're going to, ask me to help them as far as like, who should I use, Dad, or whatever. Right.
Right.
So that's naturally going to happen. And,
right.
and what's the key to success, right? It has repeat business and, doing a great job so that customer comes back to you. And,
right.
and if you're not doing that, then we're not going to be successful. So,
but we have had a lot of people move from, other parts of the country that are full-time residents, and I had a buyer move from Washington, D.C. that took a job in Encinitas, and they wanted to live by the ocean in La Jolla. So, there were very few things to show them. Fortunately, we found one. Yeah. But it's a real mix, and it's usually a referral situation for me. It's all about networking and making good relationships with people in your sphere.
Absolutely. So like you would say your business primarily comes from networking with people versus like buying Zillow leads and stuff like that, right? Like, do you mostly get your clients through just like referral, or is it more like, do you put magazine ads or like?
There's some magazine ads. I think that there's a certain element of magazines that people pick up and they do want to see their agent in there,
right?
In some of the properties, but I wouldn't say that I get a ton of calls off of them. It's more just like, I'm in the stream of consciousness in the community.
Sure, and it's part of your brand, probably.
It's part
too.
of my brand,
right?
Exactly.
And they're gonna wonder why you're not in there if you're working with this guy and he's not.
But I'd say word of mouth referrals tend to be the best clients.
Yeah.
Not to say anything against Zillow leads. With an internet lead, there's just a lot more hard work.
True.
That you have to go through, and I do have an assistant that helps me, sort of weed through that. we're not doing Zillow leads right now. We are working with an internet company that is really helping cultivate internet leads, and a lot of the people that we're getting from them are across the country who are looking to move to San Diego, but they didn't have a previous relationship here,
right.
Or a previous real estate person to work with.
That's cool. So I think with Pacific Sotheby's, right, you have an international reach.
Mm-hmm.
And so when someone's, maybe if they're in Europe, right, or Italy or something, they're like, man, I'd love to have a house in San Diego, La Jolla, Rancho Santa Fe, or second home.
Right.
Then probably being part of a company like that has its perks, right? Like
it does. We do a lot of referral business in-house. So basically, I had a client and a friend who's a neighbor, and they called me up the other day, and she said, do you know anyone in Portugal? We'd like to buy a property in Portugal. And so I called my network person, the marketing person, the referral network, and got a name and hooked them up with an agent, and they've met with an agent and they bought something.
That's cool.
So, and I get, paid on that.
Right.
So it's kind of a small portion, but it's nice to have. It's kind of bread and butter.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
So I would say, people, luckily San Diego is a great location for second homes.
Yes.
Great location for international people to come, right? Like it's the best weather in America.
It is.
I don't even think you can argue about that. I think
No.
everyone knows that,
Everyone
right?
pretty much knows
People
it.
like Bill Gates own property on the ocean front, and
Alicia Keys.
I didn't even know Alicia
Keys is in La Jolla.
Really?
Yeah.
And countless athletes, countless music stars.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's one of the best places. I mean, LA these days is gone downhill
Right.
in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
So where else do you go, right? People from San Francisco are moving down here. People from LA are moving down here. So the market's still really tight, right? Like we're going to talk, a lot about the market, but leading into that, what would you say it's like today? I think it's probably frustrating, right? With like very few listings out there, like very few. Like, is there a thing like a pocket listing now? Like I know that was a big thing back in the day.
I mean, we still have pocket listings for people that do not want to go on the market and expose their property. But, and I know that's worked well in other communities like San Francisco and Los Angeles. I don't think that it works all that well here. It's kind of like a secret listing
right.
that no one really knows about. And, I think pocket listings worked well when you had, localized market.
Yeah.
And there wasn't the internet that you have today.
Right.
So
because you want to get the most offers, the most money,
most eyeballs on the property
right.
that you can get. The more you put eyeballs on it, the higher your price, the more interest.
True.
So I think it's imperative that people publicize these things. Otherwise, no one knows about them.
So when you get a listing, it's got to be, you got to put money, you got to market, you got to put effort, time, energy, all those things. Is this a good market to have listings?
It's a great market to have listings, I think, because it shows if a seller is interested in selling, they seem a lot more committed to the process right now. Our market is in transition. We are, suffering from a little bit of lack of inventory.
Right.
And but it's benefiting people because there's sellers willing to do deals.
Yeah.
And you're out of the market where there's 10 buyers for one listing and everything is going over multiple.
So would you say that this interest rate hike that's happened has affected the ultra luxury market, or do you think it's not as much?
I think it's affected the whole market.
Yeah.
Because even if they're not going to take a loan on the property, the interest rate situation is affecting them on other parts of their portfolio.
Right.
And and then you take in the fact that we have a lack of inventory, and a lot of people are sort of sitting still right now because they don't have a place to go.
Uncertainty, right? Too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty out there.
It's like kind of sit tight, wait, see what the Fed does, see what the stock market does,
Right.
see what the elections did, which they just did. Well, actually, we still don't know.
Yeah,
right?
we're closer every day.
We're closer. But like just once this certainty kind of like levels out, then people might get back in, or maybe, and I think maybe I don't know if you probably see this more than I, but when people put their house on the market, I would think right now there's a lot of testing the market. Can I get this price still, or is it more people that I have to? I would think it's less I have to sell and more let's see what I can get kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean it's both.
Yeah.
I think that
But are you seeing distress sale at all or no?
not yet.
Yeah.
No.
Especially in the high end market, just probably not.
And it's kind of the same thing, that I saw in 2007, where people just could sit and wait it out.
Yeah.
And so I'm not seeing a lot of distress at this point.
Yeah.
No one has the crystal ball and things could change, but
That's why I brought you on. I thought you had a crystal ball.
well, I it's not working so well these days.
But you have your finger on the pulse. So
I
you
do.
kind of feel the pulse of the market. Tell us kind of what you're, based on that, like what you're thinking is going to happen.
Gosh, that's a hard one. I will tell you, I was listening to an economist this morning at my company. We were talking about the state of the market. And one of the things he was saying is he'd run this study on pricing. And prices tend to go up more in the spring, and they tend to be softer in the fall, winter months.
Right.
So what we're seeing in the market right now is if something is priced correctly, there's activity and things are selling. And I think that, a lot of buyers are going forward, even though interest rates are hard, are really high, and their payments are crazy, but they're anticipating interest rates coming down and being able to refinance pretty soon.
Yeah. I think that's a smart move, is when you can get in at a lower price and then refi later, right? That's like a strategy people do.
Right.
Because, when rates are super low, the values are just going crazy, like they did.
Right.
I think it was like, I don't even know what the stat was, but the amount of appreciation that happened in the last 2 years was just like unsustainable.
Off the charts. It couldn't continue. Yeah.
Yeah. So now
it's more normalizing.
And I think you're seeing price cuts in other in all kinds of areas around the country, although you've probably seen some of it here, San Diego. Some price cuts.
We have seen it, yes. Yeah. I mean, the past 2 years up until the summer, during COVID, there was no reason to cut a price because things were selling so fast, and if that person didn't want it, there were 5 or 6 others behind them that did.
They should have called them price bursts.
Yeah, price bursts.
It was like 200,000 over asking, million over asking.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff was happening. What was the biggest over asking you saw during 2021 or 2020?
I saw 1.2 million over asking.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yep.
That seller was happy.
That seller was very happy.
Yeah.
And the strange thing is the people ended up buying it, and they've totally ripped the house apart. So
Rich people.
There's just, you never know. It's what people will do, and there's still a lot of money out there.
Well, especially like when you have a place like San Diego, you're all about location, right? So you might pay this incredible price for a house, but the house isn't perfect. It's not exactly what you want, and so if you have tons of money, you can just do whatever you want with it, right? But the location is the key.
That is what you cannot change.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think also the reason San Diego has been on fire is as you mentioned earlier, we've had a lot of people from San Francisco, a lot of people from LA who can work in a different way, work remotely now. And they don't need to be, in those communities, and they can they got a whole lot more for their money coming down to San Diego.
Right.
So,
and is that kind of the contrast? Do you see that, like, I don't know if you follow those markets, but is it dropping more in those areas like San Francisco and LA? I
mean, I just hear that the quality of life is what I hear most about up in those communities.
But is that affecting the price, you think?
I think it's affecting the price.
Yeah.
I mean, I think ultimately it does, and especially if people are fleeing a market to go somewhere else, there's less buyers.
Right.
But I'm not predicting the demise of either of those communities.
I mean, those markets are still always going to be strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Big cities. And I would predict that, or kind of just assume that those markets were also tight, like in 2020, 2021.
Yes.
As far as like listings, there wasn't a lot of
really
listings.
Tight. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think during this last couple years, so many people couldn't buy because they would get outbid by these guys, bidding $1 million over. They're like, I can't do that.
Right.
So, they're the ones that were winning were these really ultra high net individuals. Or what about like firms like, obviously we all know about BlackRock or Blackstone and Vanguard. And there's other firms that, we don't really know. They're not big names, but we're buying up kind of like portfolio of property. Are you still seeing that? Like,
I'm not seeing that right now.
So you think they kind of just went away?
I think they've pulled back.
Just kind of waiting.
The speculative nature of some of the market, when you have Redfin canceling their home buying program and Zillow getting out of the flipping business, there are things that are happening in the market that, weren't sustainable.
Yeah. Do you think that those firms that maybe own those properties might sell them, or do you think they're just kind of going to keep them on as rentals?
I think that some have been, on the market, and a lot of them were not, unfortunately, they were not great properties to purchase,
right?
And so they ended up having to spend a fair amount of money, improving them and getting them sold, and maybe they weren't on the right location and things like that.
Time the market right.
Right.
So have you got any calls from, this is Zillow, I want to sell a house?
No,
nothing like that?
Nothing like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of figure, and this is like my own theory, I always get these theories, where like some of these firms that are buying these properties, they're never going to sell them ever. Like they're just going to keep them forever
for portfolio and rent.
Because rent's hasn't gone down, and I don't see it going down. If anything, it'll stabilize. But like if these firms are buying up property every year, right? There's only so many homes in a city.
Mm-hmm.
If those go off the market forever,
right? That's
like a interesting contraction, which keeps prices higher, I would think, because you're never gonna have that for sale.
And I think it's been harder for the smaller home flipper, that's not part of a master, corporation. Because I get emails and texts and calls all the time from people saying, I'm looking for a fixer-upper, be happy to, if you find one, you can represent us, and but they're just hard to find.
Yeah.
And
is it because the bigger corporations have their feelers out more, or is it because they're just not those properties?
Well, I think there's not that properties. I mean, I think your theory could be, seriously onto something. It's like they're taking that market segment away. Yeah.
I think, this is another thought, is like, as the boomers age out, right, and they want to sell, or, they have to sell because they're no longer here. Mm-hmm. Those homes could be fixer-uppers, right? Because a lot of them just sort of stayed stagnant, never were, improved over the years. So I think that could turn into an opportunity, hopefully, as far as like more listings, more more activity with real estate. But then again, if they have either they're free and clear, or they're got a super low rate mortgage on it, where maybe the estate or the person who inherits it is going to be like, I'm not going to sell this. I could rent it out and cash flow like crazy. Like, why would I be stupid to sell, a house with a 3% interest rate on it?
Right.
So I don't know. It's interesting.
That's the conundrum right now.
Yeah. It's like a standoff, right?
Yeah. And that's why we're seeing a little bit of quiet in the market.
Have you heard of any innovative products to help with that problem? Or is there, like, I've heard of assumable mortgages, but I don't think that's even a thing anymore. I mean, I think some government loans can be assumed, but it's just rare. Right?
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I'm hearing about is buying the rate down. Like sellers are, helping first-time home buyers who couldn't qualify, because of their situation, and their purchasing power has gone down because of the rates. But if they buy down the rate, then it makes it a lot more advantageous and affordable for them.
Yeah, I think that's got to be happening.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, makes sense. That's probably the first step before reducing the price. It's like, hey, I'll give you credit to buy that rate down.
Yeah. But there are even people writing them in the offer as buyers.
Okay. Yeah, the agents are getting smart about that, I'm sure.
And a lot of sellers, are going for it because they want to get their home sold. They want to move on.
Right.
And, of course, every seller's different.
Yeah.
But it is happening more and more.
You seeing still cash buyers?
Still see cash buyers, yes. There's no shortage of those. And, oftentimes when we were in the COVID situation and we were in multiple bidding situation, people would make their offer cash and then come back later and refinance at their leisure. But they wanted to make sure they stayed on the quick timelines on the transaction and make sure they got the property.
Yeah, and I think that sellers were obviously way more interested in cash buyers.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're always going to be, right? Like forever. It's like you got a cash buyer, or you have a loan that may not go through.
Mm-hmm.
who are you going to choose?
Yeah, ultimately.
So if there's less cash buyers now, then that's a good thing for the first-time home buyers. It's a good thing for the, maybe veterans who have a VA loan that may have taken 60 days to close, back in the day or, last year, or just people that, have limited down payments, right?
No, it's definitely good to sort of even out the market.
Yeah.
It was just too top-heavy towards cash for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's a lot of people that, can qualify and should have the opportunity to purchase.
That's good. What about, you said you had mortgage people that refer you, or that you refer business to?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have bank loan officers that you refer business to, and then you have a mortgage broker? Kind of you split it up between, like, you kind of feel out the client to see who they would work with better. Like, how do you look at that?
I really start with the client, like who the relationships are.
Yeah.
And then go from there.
Tailor it for that particular.
Because some people are like, oh, I would only finance through First Republic Bank or something like that, and so then I know someone at that organization that I could set it up with. But just having a mortgage broker that can work in many different arenas is also very advantageous too, because you're not just marrying that one company's mortgage products.
Right.
So you've got options for them.
And like you were saying, like you have a vast, wide kind of array of customers and clients that you work with, right? So it's not one stop or one, shoe fits all kind of thing, right? You're going to have people that are entrepreneurs with 16 different businesses, or maybe they sold their companies. They have no, W-2 income, but they have, passive income or whatever it is, or just assets. Yeah. And so, I'm sure you've realized
you've got to find the right person to work with that situation.
And probably someone that is at your level, experience-wise, and can deal with a higher-end customer. Right?
Yeah. I think ultimately, even though we're a luxury, I work with a lot of luxury buyers and sellers, people still need a lot of hand-holding, and they need someone who's going to follow through. Right. And I think that's kind of my biggest thing, is I want to make sure that the relationship is someone that's going to follow through and do what they say. Right. And that's, we all get busy. Yeah. But that's to me is paramount.
Yeah. Yeah. I whenever you refer somebody and then you hear back, they never got back to me.
Yeah. It's such a bad reflection on you, right?
Yep. You're like, not going to do that again.
Yeah. So you want to make sure that it's someone's working at the same level that you are.
Right. In interest, right?
Yep.
Like, and they're not retired and
doing
it on the side.
They're not calling from the golf course every day.
Oh man, it'd be nice.
It would be great. I'd love that life too, but too soon.
No, too soon. You need someone that's going to work hard for your clients. Yeah. So speaking of that, this show that we do here, this podcast, always trying to find ways to help brokers get more business, right? Mm-hmm. That's really the mission of this podcast. So speaking of, like, if a broker wanted to really create a relationship with a high-end luxury real estate agent like yourself, what is the best way to go about that? Is there a secret to that, or is it just like, you meet them at your golf club, like you said, or you meet them at your country club, or your you just, like, what would you do? Like, if you were starting out, and you were to give advice to some young person that was getting in the business, like, what would you tell them to do?
I would say try to get creative and find someone that that knows them, and try to make a warm introduction.
That's good.
I can tell you what I don't respond to, and that's just people that call and call and call and call.
It's annoying, right?
It's annoying.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't have time, but there's a mortgage broker that was starting out in the business about a year ago. Okay. And he knew someone that I knew. Yep. And that's exactly what happened. He talked to that person. They reached out to me and said, hey, would you spend some time with Alex and talk to him?
Give him a shot.
Yeah. And so I did. And, it hasn't really panned out into any business yet. But we talk, and I'm sure it's going to. Yeah. But it's been that's kind of the way, the relationship starts. Yeah. And it doesn't happen overnight, right?
You remember the beginning when you got into the business,
yeah.
And probably someone that helped you, right? Like got kind of like networked with you. And I think it's kind of fun to give back when, I got gray hair, you don't, but when we're getting a little older, you want to like kind of, help people a little bit and show them the way,
But I gave him some good ideas about how to help his business. I gave him a book that I was reading just that I suggested and, things like that.
It's cool.
Yeah. So
I want to run something by you
Sure.
because I think that this is a way. I can't believe that most mortgage brokers don't do this. Maybe some do, but if I was a mortgage broker starting out and I wanted to get business from a luxury real estate agent like you, I would go find some buyers, some really good buyers, pre-qualify them, call you and tell you, hey, I've got a buyer that is in your area.
Yeah.
And I would love to refer them to you. They're qualified. They need to find a home. I'm not a real estate agent, so I need to give, them to somebody. I think give you a little, butter you up a little bit. Like I've seen that you've closed these homes, you're super successful. Would you take my buyer? Would you work with them?
Yeah.
And then, you're going to answer or return that call.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you that client, do a warm handoff. You're going to take them, show them, all the nice houses. You're going to sell them that house. I'm going to do the loan.
Right.
And then the next time I call you, and you see my number pop up on your phone.
I'm going to take your call.
You're going to take my call, right? Hello, right? Like
Isn't
that I would think that every broker would do that. Like that's something that you can do as a mortgage broker. And then when you have a customer that might be difficult, and I say difficult, I mean more complicated, complex. They can't get a loan at First Republic or, at a B of A or City Private Client because of whatever reason, who are you going to call?
Right. Yeah. And
one that's giving you business,
exactly.
Right?
And I remember these things, and I'm very loyal. And someone that gives me something, I want to give them back. It's just, make it share the wealth for both.
So, hello, mortgage brokers, do that. It's free information right there. But like, I don't know. I remember there was a mentor I had when I was early in the business, and they would give away all their secrets like that. And I asked him one time, I'm like, why are you telling everybody this? And he's like, well, most of them won't do it.
Right.
And I will outwork them. So if they do it, good for them. And I'll still get as much business as I get because I'm a hard worker and I've had the runway of the years of experience to do it. But I think there's a lot of ways, and people tend to complain and just, oh, the market sucks and, I don't have any referral sources, but there's ways to get business out there.
Definitely. Just have to get creative.
What other secrets do you have?
Oh gosh. Well, one thing we used to do more of during COVID is we'd have broker caravans where we all, as agents, go out and see the new properties on the market. And as oftentimes real estate brokers would go out on caravan. I mean, they have access to the MLS. They can see where the properties are and just go out and tour properties and meet agents.
Yeah.
And
don't be creepy, right? Just be
not creepy. It's
be
not
normal.
like, oh, here's my card, call me.
Yeah.
I think those days are over. It's really it's about a relationship.
Yep.
But if people don't know you, they're not going to call you.
Right.
And so you need to get in a situation where you're around people that can refer you business.
Yeah, and just connect on a personal level.
Or networking or some sort of charity that you enjoy. I mean,
right.
You just need to be around people that you're going to connect with.
I think we kind of got a little spoiled in the last couple of years. Things were easy, right? Low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
The caravan thing is, I know personally I don't like doing caravan, like going to the caravans, but it's like that's because I built my business and was able to get referrals in other ways. But I remember I had to do it.
Yeah.
And if today I had no business,
you
better believe I'd be at the caravans.
Yeah.
I'd be bringing donuts and maybe not donuts, but I'd be bringing tequila or whatever, right?
Yeah.
To like make friends and just, put on that smile and just network. And I think we have to go back to being a little more hardworking and a little more.
We're back to the real estate of the past, and same with mortgage.
Yeah.
It's not just you have a heartbeat and you can just do multiple transactions, just by showing up.
Right.
Right now you have to work it.
Does Sotheby's have a mortgage division?
They have a sort of separate area called San Diego Funding, but it is not part of Sotheby's.
Okay. But you kind of like network with each other and
yes. And there are some people that I call on from time to time who, one of the ladies that I know has been in the business a really long time. And if there's a complicated deal, I know she's going to know about it.
Yep.
But, I think for also some of my clients, I've referred to her, she works on the weekends with these first time home buyers.
You got to work on the weekends now.
You got to be available, because that's when they're out looking. And she answers her phone. And that's been one of the reasons for her success with so many agents is that, she does what she says she's going to do.
It's those little things, right?
Yeah.
Just answer
it's
your
not
phone.
rocket science, right?
It's not. Answer your phone, text, message, keep communication, work on the weekend. At some point you can go back to not having to work on the weekend if if the market turns and you'll have your life back.
Yeah.
But if you don't have, it's like, do you want a life or do you want to pay your bills right now? It's like you gotta do it.
It's the delicate balancing act, but I've been in this business long enough to see so many different cycles.
Yeah.
And nothing stays the same for very long. There's always a change on the horizon.
It's like a storm, right?
Yeah.
It's eventually going to come out of it.
And it's hard to predict, but it will be different today that next year than it will be now.
That's the good news.
Yeah.
What about self-employed buyers? Do you come across that, like business owners and?
Yeah, I do. And you with a mortgage person, you've got to really understand that. Mm-hmm. And I've had success with getting them loans, and but it's working with the right people. It's working with the team.
Do you one of the things I think of when I see high-end loans or high-end real estate, it's usually people who either own companies or they are self-employed. Obviously they're doctors, surgeons, and people that that work for hospitals or whatever that can afford really nice homes and things like that. But I would imagine if you're like the super high end, isn't necessarily a W-2 workers as much.
No, totally.
So I think that's why I think a non-QM is important when it comes to the high-end luxury market.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Because like using their bank statements to qualify could be the make or break it of that deal closing.
Right.
I'm sure being in the business for 30 years, like you said, you have to have a good story about a client, maybe a difficult client, maybe whatever it might be. I got to pull it out of you. Like, tell us something juicy, something good about a client you've had. You don't have to name names.
No names.
No names.
Well, I will tell you about a situation. I guess it happened right before COVID started. Selling some properties in Coronado. Very affluent couple getting a divorce. She had a really large home on the ocean. He had a very newer but smaller home on the bay, and they went to family court, and the judge was like, these need to be sold. And we would get offers on both of them, but neither of them wanted to be the first to sell.
It's a little standoff.
So there was a bit of a standoff for a year, and
all the while you're marketing, spending
money. The good news is they had two very smaller properties that were under $1 million a piece that were just little investments. We did sell those easily.
Nice.
But the big ones, the over 25 million and the over 13 million, were the ones that, that's the nice commission sale. That's the ones you're working so hard for.
Right.
Spending all the marketing dollars and all the magazines and, just the time commitments and things with showing. I mean, when you're showing a over 20,000 square foot house, it takes time.
Sure.
So
it's got to be just right too.
But anyway, at the end of this year, neither of them wanted to sell. And so basically we just had to fire the client.
Wow.
But what happened is the large house had offers at 17. It was priced at 25. The other house was priced at 14. It had offers at 11. Neither of them, and this was pre-COVID, wanted to take it. They're like, oh, it's worth more. It's worth more. And of course it's worth more. And anyway, the big house is still on the market.
Wow.
and it is going.
It is now probably what they would have sold it for before, right?
No, they have actually increased the price.
Oh, wow.
So I am very happy that I let that client go.
Because it could have been another year down in marketing.
It could have been 4 years,
Wow.
right? Because it was before COVID. So,
and that ain't cheap to market those
No.
kind of houses, no?
No. And, at the end of the day, they were just not nice people
Yeah.
to each other and to real estate people.
There's probably a lot of negativity during that
Yeah.
time with those. I mean,
Well, it's a very emotional thing. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure a lot of mortgage brokers out there, it can be very emotional in a transaction.
and thankless.
And
right?
thankless. Yeah.
But that's why we make the big bucks.
Yeah.
But so you can fire a client.
You
You're telling us
can.
that. You can fire a client.
If it's not working. And there were some other issues where the client was drunk one afternoon and
Tell us
decided.
the story.
Well,
This is the juicy part, right?
the juicy part is, I'm always wanting to help the client. I don't think I've ever been in a situation where I would be an adversarial,
Yeah.
situation and try to, be a jerk to a client. It's just
Sure.
not how I operate. But he did call one afternoon and was drunk and just started screaming and yelling on the phone
Jeez.
about, you said you were going to show my house today, and you're not here, and I left the house all day long, and no one's been there. And I was like, I did not schedule the appointment. It was a tentative appointment, but it was never scheduled. It was a possible appointment. And, but I think because of alcohol getting into the mix, it really brought out a very ugly side of that person. And
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm not going to do this.
Took it out on you.
Yeah, I'm not going to do this. I've been in the business too long, and, not everyone is going to work well with everyone.
True.
And, I value my life and my time and the people that I am able to work with. And I looked back on it, and I had been spending, 85 to 90% of my bandwidth on this one person to the detriment of all my other clients.
Right.
And,
Wow.
and so I decided that was just the right move.
Yeah, man.
So.
That's a good story. I mean, it's tough to give up those dollars, like those commissions.
It is,
and
but there were other things I sold
Yeah.
that were, close in price.
yeah, I mean, you made the right decision because you said 90% of your time was on this,
Yeah.
which never would have sold.
Right.
Well, still to this day, still available. And then now I'm sure like you said, last year you sold 50 million with the real estate, so
Yeah.
you probably wouldn't have sold 50 million if that one didn't sell and you still
That's
had
right.
that. So
Yeah,
you made the right move.
I think so.
Any shout outs to people along the way that have helped you? I know, you said you started in New York or so just curious, there's always someone that's helped us, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I say for me, there was a guy named Stephen James who was my first broker when I rolled into Douglas Elliman in New York City and with my license in hand and really no experience. And, he took a chance on me by
That's cool.
hiring me and then, got me set up with other agents. And it turned out to be a great situation. But it's really just that one first person
Yep.
that kind of believes in you that you never forget.
Yep.
And, he's still in the business today working for Berkshire Hathaway, I think. So, he'd be my shout out.
That's cool.
So,
And you never know when you can be that person for someone else,
Yeah,
right? Like,
right.
I think back to the person that got me in the business, and I talk to him every once in a while, every like 6 years, and it's I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for that person doing that one referral, saying, hey, you should hire this guy and train him and get him in the business, but yeah, so I don't know, maybe this is a chance where we can do that for someone else, right?
Absolutely. And, I'm in a position today where I can help out other people, and I get a lot of reward from that.
That's cool.
So.
What about teams? Like, I know you said you have an assistant. Have you ever worked on a team? Like, do you think it's a good thing, or personalities is tough?
It's like a daytime marriage, right?
Right.
It's some of them work, some of them don't. But I think ultimately I haven't seen a ton of them work. They work for a time period, but then they fizzle out.
Yep.
Either one person's doing the work, or one person's traveling, or one person doesn't want to spend the money, or one person's ego is just way too big.
Yep.
So it can work, but it's not usually a formula that I see successfully.
Right. But like an assistant kind of helps.
An assistant's great.
Yeah.
She's kind of my right hand. She's licensed, so she can sell on her own. And, but I'm able to call her with any, contracts that need written or showings need to be set up or, client communication.
That's cool.
And so, she works a lot from home. And I've been a lot more flexible during COVID, as we all have.
Right, we had to.
You don't have to be in the office a certain amount of time, but we do try to have office hours every week where we can sort of connect and really, focus on the things that we need to do together.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
So if someone's trying to find you online, I mean, I know Google these days that you can find anybody, right?
Yeah.
So look up Clinton Selfridge and Sotheby's and give a shout out, send you a referral.
Or, if anyone needs any assistance and, just with whatever. I mean, moving to San Diego, I get calls about the community all the time too.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think when you're in real estate, you're kind of an ambassador for your community. And people call me like, what's the best restaurant downtown? Or, where do you eat in La Jolla? So
isn't that amazing that if you're relocating, there's so many nuances that you're like, oh, this looks like a great house. But you're like, well, that house is got this around it. And it's not, there's so many things, right? Like I remember when I moved to Nashville for a little while, it was like, people would tell me like certain areas but it's so important to have somebody boots on the ground. That's my point is just like I could ramble, but my point is that like if you have someone that really knows those nuances ins and outs, it really is priceless when it comes to buying real estate. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
All right, everybody, please like, share, subscribe, and comment, and let us know who you want to have on this podcast because we'll get them and we will interview them and have a great time. Keep giving you guys value. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.
The $1 Million Mortgage Experience Podcast.